Hello, it's Jess. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to today's video. Today's video should be a pretty simple and sweet wrap up. I'm gonna talk about all of the books that I read in the month of July. I read a total of 7 books, but July was the best reading month I have had all year. I recommend highly recommend every single book that I'm going to talk about in this video. I loved all of them. It might not have been the month where I read the most number of books or the most pages, but in terms of reading enjoyment, July absolutely nailed it. It was the most enjoyment I have had all year for like a collective month, and it was just so fantastic. So let's get going. Thankfully, most of these books I already have a vlog for, so I can be a little bit short. And I'm actually gonna start with The Angel of Indian Lake by Stephen Graham Jones. I read this for Summerween, so there is an entire vlog just dedicated to this book. This is the third in the Angel Lake trilogy, and so honestly, I really don't want to tell you too much about it, but I will just say that Jade is back, and I think that if you liked My Heart is a Chainsaw and you didn't like Don't Fear the Reaper as much, then I think that you will go back to loving this book. The magic that was in My Heart is a Chainsaw is very much back in this. We're back in Jade's head. We have like all of her inner monologue of ramblings and like her silly little thoughts. I say that with like, take that with a grain of salt, because like her silly little thoughts are quite dark. This is adult horror. This book is just absolutely magical. This is the perfect way to end this series, in my opinion. I think that tonally and thematically it's fantastic. I love what Stephen Graham Jones has to say in this series about Final Girls. I just love this series. I love it so very much. It's one of my favorite series of all time. Jade is one of my favorite characters in existence. I would die for Jade, and if I existed in this world, I definitely would die. I would be a part of the body count for sure. There's no way in hell I would survive in a horror novel. I cannot recommend this series highly enough. I will say though, caveat, that this is probably the most polarizing book that I have in this wrap up, and that's like purely just based off of like writing style and creative choices that Stephen Graham Jones made within this series. I think if you try out My Heart is a Chainsaw and you're 100 pages in and you're not having a good time, put down the series. Like, it's not for you. But if you love My Heart is a Chainsaw, you will love this book as well. If you want to know more thoughts about that, go check out my Summerween vlog. I'll have that linked. I go a lot more in depth in that vlog about what this series is about and how Jade has changed over the 3 books, and thematically how different this one is, but like how well it fits with the series. And I talk about a lot of things. I rant for a really long time, so go check out that vlog if you want to know more about The Angel of Indian Lake. Next up, I have 4 books that I read for a 24-hour challenge where I was only reading thrillers. Again, that is a vlog. It is up. It's like almost an hour long. And once again, I talk too damn much, so I'm gonna be quick here. But like I said, I read 4 books. The first being Night Film. So Night Film is an adult thriller where you follow this investigative journalist. He had this like run-in with this extremely famous like cult horror director and filmmaker. He was convinced that like there was something shady going on, but then like when he went to like talk about his investigation, he ended up like being disgraced, and now he's like shunned and kind of blacklisted. But then the filmmaker's daughter commits suicide and he decides to look into the family once more. This thriller is just so fantastic. I love the way that it played with like the reader's sense of reality and your perception around you. I highly recommend this, but I will say that the main character of this is a pretentious dick. And like you're in his head the entire time, and like you're not meant to like him. He is meant to be a pretentious dick. But if you don't maybe want to be in the mind of a pretentious asshole, maybe pass on this because it's gonna get annoying sometimes. But in my opinion, the main character really worked within like the context and themes of this story, and I think like it made a lot of sense for him to be the way he was, and I gave this 5 stars and I loved it. But I also know that like that could really, really piss some people off and like they just won't get any enjoyment out of this book, so I did want to say that. If you know thrillers that are like this, please let me know. I loved the way this book played with my mind. I need more thrillers that will play with my mind like this. I don't know what that says about me, but I need them, and like I loved this and I thought it was so well executed. The atmosphere was also fantastic, so highly recommend. And thank you also to my Twitch moderator Insane, who gifted this to me several years ago. I finally got around to it, yay! In that vlog I also read Only If You're Lucky. This is Stacy Willingham's newest release, and again I gave this 5 stars. Like I said, best week of reading of my life. This is a thriller that is basically about like girlhood turning into womanhood. You're following college freshmen on their way to being like sophomores, and like all of the navigating life that goes along with being at that age and the huge transitions that accompany that. It's about friends and toxic friend groups. It's really, really well crafted. I loved this. I said in the vlog that I think that if you like Mean Girls, that like you might like this if you also want a thriller. This is like, it's not a comedy by any means, so like don't pick this up and think it's gonna give you Mean Girls. Like, it's not a comedy thriller. But I think that like on the Venn diagram of like Mean Girl enjoyers and thriller enjoyers, this sits like in the middle section, and I think that you might really like this. Something about Stacy Willingham's writing and the way she writes atmosphere, I just love it. I eat it up every time. I know that a lot of people disagree with me, and I don't care because I'm right, and Stacy Willingham is just the author for me. She just is. I love all of her thrillers. I think they're so well done. And you know what? If you hated it, good for you, but I don't care because I had a fantastic time in this one. Next up, I read The Collective, another adult thriller. This is a revenge story. It's about this mother who gets kind of like caught up in this group of mothers, and all of them have lost a child, but the person responsible for their child's death was never punished, and they get revenge. It was great. It was fantastic, twisty and turny, and you know, it's a good revenge story. I do love a good revenge story, and I gave this 4.5 stars. It's a good time. I highly recommend it. This is also like a really, really fast read. I blew through this in like 2.5 hours or something like that, and I was enjoying myself the entire time. It was compulsively readable. So I think that if you like revenge stories, if you don't mind being stabbed in the heart a little bit, because there are big grief themes with this, that this is like a really, really good, fast-paced, quick thriller. The last book that I read for that video is As Good as Dead by Holly Jackson, and I really can't tell you much about this. This is a young adult mystery thriller this time, and this is the 3rd book in a series. It's the conclusion to A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series, and this one follows a stalker. All I'm gonna say is Holly Jackson went there. She went there, and you know, like, it was a lot, and like I ate it up and I loved it, and I was like, yeah, give me more please, Holly Jackson. Thank you. Thank you, I would like another. Out of all of the thrillers that I read for this vlog, I do think that the Good Girl's Guide to Murder series has like the biggest mass appeal. And don't let the fact that it's young adult turn you off, because it's outstanding. Like, it is such a good series. Trust me, you will not care that it's a young adult series. It is so well plotted and executed, and like everything is just like perfect. Honestly, I recommend this series to basically anybody, like any reader at all that likes thrillers. You will enjoy this series. I like, genuinely, I don't see one reason with this series where like if you if you like thrillers, you wouldn't like this. Like, there's no reason. So pick it up, please. It's so good. As with the other 3 books that I read, again, if you want to know more in-depth thoughts, I do have an almost hour-long vlog where I talk a lot about these books. So I'm gonna move on, but I will leave that vlog linked for you if you want to check it out. If you were wondering, hey Jess, where's the fantasy? Don't worry, I did have time to squeeze in a couple of fantasy reads last month. The first one being Legend Born by Tracy Deonn. And you know what, Kitty, you're right. This book is fantastic. Like, it's so good. It's so good. So this is a young adult fantasy. It's the first book in a series, and I don't know how many books are gonna be in this series. If you know, like, post in the comments, but the second book is out and the third book, I want to say, is coming out in March. In this series, you're following Bree, and unfortunately at the very beginning of the book, her mother passes away right after Bree gets accepted into this like early admittance program for college. And then Bree sees a couple of events that she's not supposed to like physically be able to see with her eyeballs, and it leads her to discover some of the college's secret societies, including one that is basically like Arthur and the Round Table from Camelot. I just think it was like really, really well done. Like, Tracy Deonn's take on the Arthurian legend is fantastic in my opinion. It felt like really new and fresh, and it also felt like absolutely perfect for a young adult fantasy because it was very, very real stakes, and I was like very much worried for these characters, but there was still a level of like funness to the book, which I think in young adult fantasy can be important. I mean, like, obviously there's some really dark young adult books out there, but sometimes you do want like a certain level of funness. Like, you want to feel like you're on like the beginning of an adventure, and I really, really got that in this book. There's a lot of really fun moments in amidst all of the danger. I also did not see the end coming. I did not. It got me. I got part of it. But Kitty, if you're watching this, I thought that there was going to be like, I don't know, maybe something to do with Guinevere. Like, if that like makes sense. And I don't want to get any more specific because I don't want to use like words that they use in here in reference to Guinevere because I don't want to spoil, but like, I hope you're reading my mind. But then we got to the end and it was something completely different, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah. I can get on board with this. I can get on board. I like it. Yeah. I already have book 2. I don't know if you can see it, but like, it's sitting like over there behind me, and I need to get to it because book 1 ends on like a sort of cliffhanger. Like, it's not, but it is. So I got to get to it. And then the last book that I want to talk about in this video is A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross. This is the first book in the Elements of Cadence duology. This is an adult fantasy, and basically you follow Jack, who grew up on the island of Cadence, but when he was like 12 or 13, something like that, he was sent away to go to school to train to become a bard, and he has since like never come back. He made a life for himself on the mainland, but at the start of the book, he receives a letter from the Lord of the island. They request Jack to come back to the island because girls are now missing, and basically they want Jack to use his music magic, his bardic magic, to help them communicate with the island spirits in order to help solve the mystery of why are these girls disappearing, where are they going, like, can they find them. I really, really like this book. I rated it 4 stars. It is a little bit slow moving, I would say, for how short like the duology is overall. Not much happens happened in like the first 100 pages or so. But overall, I really, really liked it. I think this is a book for people who like softer novels, and I don't necessarily want to categorize this book as cozy because I don't think it is, but it is soft. It is about these people living on the island and how they go about their life and how they live and how they interact with this island that is very magical, and how there are active spirits around and what magic they have and the cost of that magic. And really, this is just kind of a soft book about these people living their lives. Like, there are obviously very, very real stakes with the mystery of the girls disappearing. So I don't want to say it's like cozy by any means, because you are very much afraid for these girls as you're reading this, but it is a softer novel. It feels very like internal many times. I also want to give a recommendation for who I think should read this series. And now I want to make this recommendation with like the biggest caveat ever, because this is not a one-to-one recommendation. But I think that if you enjoy Studio Ghibli movies, that you would really enjoy this. That being said, it's not a one-to-one comparison. Like, I don't want people to think if they pick this book up, they will get Studio Ghibli vibes, because that is not... That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that I think that if you enjoy that media, that there is a high likelihood that you will also enjoy this media. Thematically, there are quite a few similarities between them, and I also think that the softness of this will resonate with the softness of those movies. I do recommend this. I'm currently reading book 2, and I will let you know in my August wrap-up what I think of that. So there you have it. Those are the 7 books that I read in the month of July. It was such a good reading month. I also really appreciate you being here and hanging out with me today. Thank you so much. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing. I hope that you stay safe this week. I hope you stay cool this week, and I'll see you soon with another video. Goodbye.